Now, you could get caught on the backside of that, where now that $350,000 example becomes 300 or 280, right? You don't know what this other comp is going to sell for. That one that's much nicer, the one that's a 10 out of 10, it could sell for 350. Could close at 350. Then what? Right? Well, you can't still, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you still can't try to twist my arm and tell me that it's still worth 350. We're always having these conversations before we hit record, and it's like, oh, hit record. But these are the conversations that you need to be having. The conversations we're talking about are the ones you need to be having with not only your clients, but with yourself in today's market. And that's what we're going to drop into today, because we're already in the thick of it. Alex and I were chatting before we hit record, and there's just so much to dive into. But where does your head go when I say that, Alex?
Yeah, my head goes in a lot of different directions. I would say first and foremost, like what I've been working on with the team and running my business like a business is it's cutting this, cutting that. And it's the little stuff. I'm like, we are cut some big stuff, but it's like the little program here for $250. The little thing over here, why do we have this many accounts on Gmail? Like, because we thought we're going to grow the team to this. We've got 10 extra accounts. Well, we can save, $270 a month there. Well, bro, that's $3,000 a year. Like, we're not there. So we can always revisit it in 2 or 3 months from now. If we get, that many more, we can add it. So it's just really kind of looking at the balance sheet. I think a lot of people may or may not be doing this. And I think that at the core, that's one of the things that I've really been focusing on over the last couple of weeks. And it's a good exercise. Dude, it should be a good exercise even in a booming market. Like, are we really using that? Like, just what's essential, right? Kind of going back a little bit. So we do these Friday meetings, and a lot of the stuff that I've done has been like, hey, on stoicism, on being strong, on, this kind of stuff. And man, what we've been using that Friday for, rather than doing a new meeting during the week, because it's like what's essential for the agents is prospecting, back to the Joe Rosen, doing 38% more and getting 38% more dials and getting 25% less appointments met and appointments set, right? So it's what's really essential. I'm now doing really in-depth coaching with the agents on each one of them, because we do now looking at our numbers, how many dials, how many conversations, and so forth, and down to appointment EBBAs signed, exclusive buyer broker agreements signed, down to offers written, and then offers accepted, right? So I can see, bro, just in those numbers, like the newer agent on the team we set the bar of 100 dials a day. We use a dialer. Maybe that sounds like a lot to some people. I'm just saying that's not a lot if you're using a dialer. It's a couple hours of prospecting. Newer agent, he doesn't have a pipeline. So I was like, man, the 100 dials for you, like that goalpost has to be moved up, right? So just little individual coaching into the numbers, right? And then other agents are like, okay, hey, you're having a lot of conversations. You have EBBAs signed. You've actually gone on appointments. And then I look at offers written, 0. And I'm like, this is where you're stuck. So an individual coaching into that is asking people, okay, just as an example, it was like, she goes, he wants this, she wants that. He doesn't like this, he doesn't like that. I said, okay, what is the thing that will help them agree on something? And she goes, I said, price. So if you get the price down where they go, oh, if we get it at this price, you can have that extra, you can have those cabinets, you can get this, right? Because like price is something they can both agree on. So I'm like, what price? This is the question that you would want to ask. What price would this property be? Like, you both would say, we couldn't walk away from this. You both kind of like the house, but Like, what price could you both go, wow, we could not walk away from this? That way the person ends up writing. And this isn't a get somebody or trickery or whatever. It's like they both couldn't walk away, right? So you're writing offers. So it's kind of just getting down to essentials, Eddie, and going back to last week is motivation. And I just put that reel up about motivation, motivation, motivation. If you're not motivated, buyer or seller, just saying, maybe the seller out there, but also as an agent saying this to people, if they're not motivated, walk away.
And that couldn't apply even more now than ever. I mean, is it always a rule to apply with regardless of the market? Absolutely. Is it even more critical now with the market we have right now? I would say absolutely yes. And why would you say that's the reason? Why is it even more important right now in today's market?
I would say because you're in a declining market.
And what does that mean for the agent? Why should they act on that skill sooner than later for them?
Because a listing is a liability. So if you're going to spend money on photos, you're going to spend money on admin, you're going to spend now your time, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, the 15 minutes here, the half an hour there. So where you could be taking time on the dialer or calling people, looking for people that are ready, willing, and able. And this is maybe a little bit of redundant to last week, but I think it's just hyper critical. So if somebody's not ready, willing, and able as a buyer, move on. Like, don't be showing people a neighborhood because they want to see the area. It's like, here's the properties in that area. Go see the neighborhoods. That way you can see if you like the area. Why are you opening a door if they don't even know what the neighborhood is, right? So I think these listings are going to become liabilities. We're carrying now 31 listings, man. In most markets, and like a normal market, if you will, I'm carrying 12 to 15. We did 152 transactions last year. That's relative to that, right? Now we're carrying double. But now I'm kind of like going, hey, do not take these things because A, it costs me money, the team money, which we could be spending on other opportunities for you, and it's going to cost you money because your time.
What does this mean now if we flip it to the customer, to the client? That's, what is from their perspective? I love that story you shared with me earlier before we hit record. Is that something you want to talk about now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good one, man. I don't think we mentioned it last week, and this is leading edge kind of stuff, right? So they signed the listing agreement 6 weeks ago. Okay. We're still cleaning out. There was, we just kind of kept putting it off. And some of you folks might out there, like I have people that have been putting it off for 6 months. It's like, man, that analysis I did for you 6 months ago, that's gone. Dude, this one was done 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. So we were looking at fourth quarter numbers from last year. That market's gone. So they were, called me up. They say, okay, we're finally ready to go on the market. We had signed the listing agreement at 415,000, which I thought even was a little bit high there, but I was like, okay, we can give it a shot for a couple of weeks. And this is where my mindset wasn't quite where it is now, even 6 weeks later, right? Like I wasn't quite even where I definitely was not where I am right now.
In terms of your decision with accepting a listing like this.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in this time frame, I saw another listing come on the market. This is a condo on the beach. I saw another listing come on the market, and they went at 400. This is a fully remodeled unit, and these folks are, so this would be kind of a 10 out of a 10. I kind of do it that way when I teach the agents. I'm like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what condition is this property in? It could be a 1970 property, but it's completely remodeled. That would be a 10 out of 10 for 1970, right? So their property is probably I would put it as a 7 in condition. Good condition, not beat up, but not like bathrooms aren't redone, kitchen's not redone, so forth. So another one comes on the market down the hall literally 3 doors down, exact same unit, square footage, so forth, but remodeled. Went on the market for 400, and then within 10 days dropped it to 390. So they're at 390. These guys are at 415, and he was going, well, maybe we'll price change it down to 400. And I called him the other day and I said, we got a problem, man. We got a problem. And he kind of called me, thought there was a leak in the unit or something like that. And I said, look, man, this unit went on the market right down the hall from you at 390. So I said, okay, well, let me come over and let's sit down, because I didn't want to do as there was definitely on the phone. He's like, what are you talking about? And it was a little, you really want to get person to person, and definitely don't want to be texting. Like this is a look you in the eye conversation, right? So I go over there and bro, like that, I'm walking in ready to walk out, saying I don't, even though we'd already taken the photos, it was like, I don't know, man. I don't want to waste your time and mine. Like, if I don't think I can sell this, then why even bother? Putting it on
Right.
market. So, long story short, just had this tough conversation of you. Okay, let's just look at it from the buyer side. This unit's for sale for 390. You're at 400. Now that's a disparity right there. Now you got to get in front of that one. So it's like, how much? So he had in his mind 400, running the numbers. Okay, I'm going to net this. Maybe I'll take 390. Maybe I'll take 380. This is what I'm going to net. And it just, half an hour conversation. We could talk a little bit if you want about I don't know how in depth I want to go with it actually. But this person's in a luxury sale market of luxuries. Okay. And he's really feeling it because it's a luxury market, right? And I'm like, just, you're feeling it in the luxury market. A condo is kind of a luxury, if you will. I mean, it's still real estate, right? Like you can actually live in it and all that. But people, hey, if they're up north and they've held the condo for 20, 30 years and they come down for season, it's kind of a luxury to them. It's probably one of the first things. They're going to get rid of the boat first, then probably the condo, right? So, long story, a little bit longer, but I'll try to tighten it up here. I just had this moment. It was like a come to Jesus moment of like, well, he's like, okay, it was half an hour, 35-minute conversation. And it went down to, he's like, what do you think? And I said, 350. And he was like, just stunned. And so he gets out the calculator and this is what I'll net. And I'm like, if you're lucky, you're going to net that. Because at 350, let's say these other guys sell at 370, 360, it's going to take 50, 60,000 easy to make your unit look like that. So, we signed at 350, but I still don't even know, man. We're just such on the leading edge of this, Eddie. I don't know how much deeper it's going to cut.
Yeah, this is that really super interesting time where you don't know, you're riding a literal wave. Like you get on, hopefully it doesn't wash right over you and pull you under, because that's exactly where we're at right now. It's that transition. I mean, we use different words, but I mean, it's that transition. There's this unknown component of what's going on in the market right now. For a while, we were pretty steady in the way we saw the market. It was an appreciating market. It was, a seller's market. They were commanding whatever they wanted. It's that time where it just kind of changes, and it's like it changes a little bit here, but not necessarily in this type of product, and not necessarily right away in this area of town. And so there's just all these little variables and dots around that is like, is it here? Is it there? Is it? So there's some chasing. I mean, I'm using different analogies, but that's basically the mix of things that are happening, right? And so,
Yeah.
not to sell the virtues and the value of an agent, but man, this is right now when you really need to have a really astute agent guiding you through it, especially if you need to, right? Because you describe somebody who, you're right, could potentially write it out, be like, you know what, we don't really need to sell. We'd like to sell, but we don't really need to sell. We'll hold on to it for a little bit longer and see what happens. Now, you could get caught on the backside of that, where now that $350,000 example becomes 300 or 280, right? You don't know what this other comp is going to sell for. That one that's much nicer, that the one that's a 10 out of 10, it could sell for 350. Could close at 350. Then what? Right? Well, you can't still, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you still can't try to twist my arm and tell me that it's still worth 350. Would you buy it at 350? I always use that example, right? Don't we always do that?
Yeah.
Like, would you?
Right.
Here's the black and white. The black and white is the data is the same for a buyer or a seller. And we've got to make good decisions based on that. So would you end up buying it for 350 if that beautiful thing sells for 350? No, you're not. 310, maybe if you really loved that building and there was nothing else available and your friends lived in the building next door or whatever it was, maybe, but it's probably closer to 300. So I mean, it's there's some chasing involved. There's some a, a, a a really important quality in that you've mentioned before in other conversations, but it applies here. And I want you to share kind of how it applies here too, is for your particular example is the motivation. How motivated are they to sell? And when do you try to strike that right moment where this is the time I've got to sell it. I've got to take my lumps. How do you determine motivation in the people that you're talking with?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of maybe even going back to the balance sheet thing of, okay, let's look at what the carrying costs are here. So, yeah, you want to put as much money in your pocket as possible. That is definitely my objective to help you do too. That being said, what's your carrying cost, right? So your motivation might be like, we want to get away from however much amount a month it takes you to hold that property. Now, if you live in the property, kind of coming back to this, agents out there are talking to that buyer or seller. They're not living in the unit anymore. So now it's just carrying costs for them. Let's say they're living in it. It's like, okay, what's your motivation? Is it you have to be here for a job transfer? You have to move the kids for school. And that's a have to. Maybe you want to be in a bigger house, or maybe you want to be in a smaller house. Do you really need that? That is those really deep, deep questions that if they, the seller goes off onto, and not to say they're being flighty and on purpose, they've got a lot of stuff going on in their worlds, right? So our job is to really go, this is for you. We really need to find out if this is that important for you to put this property on the market. Because if it is, okay, then we need to be priced absolutely right. I was watching, did you ever watch the movie Margin Call? Kevin Spacey and Jeremy Irons?
I don't think so. I know of it, but I don't think I've watched it.
I was interested. I kind of got back to just, I don't watch a lot of TV, and I haven't watched movies in kind of years because I've just been so driven and kind of trying to stay away from the screen. But I was like, I had a really long weekend of doing a yard sale and cleaning out my garage and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I just wanted to relax on a Sunday afternoon after I'd done a lot of stuff. So anyways, Margin Call came up. And anybody who's not familiar with the movie, it was basically about the 2008 crash. And it wasn't a company specifically that they I actually watched the collapse of Lehman Brothers the other night. I watched it Saturday night or some of it Monday night. Anyways, so basically what somebody figured out, which I feel like you and I kind of are in a way here because we've been through it before, but this... they laid a bunch of people off, and then it's kind of one of those build up. Oh, and he hands the thumb drive over. Do you remember this whole thing?
Yeah.
He hands the thumb drive so that the top guy in the risk management department gets laid off, and he hands a thumb drive to this young kid as he's like leaving, through the elevator, and he's like, "Take this, take a look at it, but be careful." It's like the plot, and like foreshadowing type stuff. So anyways, the kid, he's a rocket scientist, literally. And he'd been brought into this company because he was just making more money, crunching numbers for this, Wall Street company rather than working at NASA or something. And the kid figures out like, whoa, He sits up, stays late and up all night, and he's like, he figures out like, holy macaroni, we are beyond the levels of over leveraged. And if this keeps going, like, we're done. Like, the whole company is going to be, the losses are going to be larger than the assets of the company. You're done. So they figure this out. He kind of figures it out before, and then they, bring in all the top execs and everything. And this all culminates with they're like, we're done. We got to dump this stuff, right? And so there's this scene, right, where it's Jeremy Irons, who's the guy who's the head of the company, and there's Kevin Spacey, who's like got all the traders. He's got the trading department, and he's like, Jeremy Irons is like, we just have to sell it all, and Spacey's like, do you understand what this means? Like, if we sell this junk to these other people, we're never going to be able to sell anything to them again. And Jeremy Irons says, and he's like, it's going to look like panic. Jeremy Irons says, it's not panic if you're the first one to the door. So I'm not trying to say this is some 2008 moment. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say here is that back to this unit, right? Like, it is pricing you at 350, and it might be 320. It might be 310, because if they sell it for 360, if they sell it for 350, your 350 is not looking good. So you want to get ahead of that. And I'm not trying to like scare anybody, right? This is me. You are the agent out there talking to somebody. Use a story like this of like, you got to think a couple of moves ahead. If this is what the trend, which you talked about, the transition, like, I think we're in this transition moment. And again, I don't know how deep it's going to go. I don't know what's going on. I'm not Chicken Little saying the sky's going to fall. It's going to be Armageddon. It's not, I don't think will be a 2008, because it's not a mortgage thing. This is a different kind of thing. And probably there's going to be movies done about this 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, talking about this. It was tariffs. It was this. Maybe, Trump's a Ronald Reagan moment where he actually did dump the market. It took a year and a half. I don't know if you're aware of this. Back in 1988, I think it was, that he actually, Paul Volcker raised the interest rates. It like dropped the S&P by like 30, 40%. Everybody's like, what the heck? And it's like, they had to do that to flush out everything so that it could grow again. And we went into this, decades of prosperity after that. But it took a year and a half to flush out. Now, hey, where are we at right now, man? Stock market, all-time highs, real estate, all-time highs. Well, we're at, real estate's kind of going, but the stock market's hanging in there. I don't know, buddy. I don't know if it's one of those moments.
But
we'll see.
If we zero in on that person and that building, on that seller, it only takes one other seller to screw it up for you, because their motivation may be different. Their motivation may not be because of the market circumstances that we just kind of sampled there in your statement. It could be completely different. It could be a very personal reason. Doesn't matter, because that's going to lock in, and that's the price it's sold, and your neighbors are absolutely affected. So it's not just what we just described and what, these market movements. It could very well be a completely different motivation, which, even if it's completely honest and true, still signals to the market this unit is only worth X. And now you have to succumb to that realization that that's what those are selling for. And now you become a victim of it. And then the one after that and the one after that. So I love how you said that. I love how you mentioned, just getting ahead of it. Because we don't know. There's a little bit more uncertainty. There's a little more possibility that this could go the other way. More so than it was 6 months ago, more so than it was a year ago, more so than it was 3 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we're not doomsdayer guys. We're not that. You and I are not like that. We're not here to say, oh, here it is, a market crash. You and I are not the ones that are putting out those 3-second reels that say, that's it, the market's over, everything has crashed, hug your children, we're not that. We're just a little more thoughtful. And this kind of thoughtfulness, I think, is what we're trying to share in this conversation to the agents out there. And then hopefully you're sharing that kind of conversation with your clients that you're serving. And then hopefully all of you sitting at that table, the light bulb goes on at the same moment, and we all understand where we're at and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to help you with as good stewards of your piece of real estate, of your investment. That, I think, is where all this comes down to. So it's important. You got to have someone on your side that's paying attention to this stuff.
You mentioned something in there, and I love quotes. You know me. One of my friends way back in actually 2009, it wasn't have anything to do with that or whatever, but he said something to me way back then, and he said, "There's no victims, there's only volunteers." Like, that has stuck with me for years, man. So if you're out there, let's say you took this overpriced listing, you're not a victim of the sellers being not willing to lower the price. You volunteered to sign up with them, and you didn't either understand what was going on or you didn't have the guts to tell them what was going on, and therefore you volunteered. But if you're at the water cooler going like, "I can't believe they won't lower the price, can't believe this," is like, hey, you didn't do your job. Either you didn't know how to do your job or you didn't have the guts to tell them. I don't know, but you volunteered for it. And I think there's a lot to be said for, being a hero. It's like you're either the hero or you're the victim. It's your movie, Joe Rogan, like you're the hero of your life or you're the victim. And so what do you want to be?
I mean,
I think about
yeah, I
stuff.
mean, I love these conversations. You know why I love these conversations so much is because they're just a lot more granular than you hear in other places. And that's not us necessarily doing this, but this is what you and I enjoy doing. It's like, man, all that experience that we've gained over the years, kind of boiled down into these little moments where it's like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that if you zero in, this is the kind of stuff that happens. These are the conversations that should be happening. This is the skill set that, and not to should on everyone, right? Well, we said that before, but it's in your best interest to have this level of skill set. It's in your bank account's best interest to have this level of skill set. It's in your children's future. It's in their benefit that their mom or dad has got this level of skill set. So there's a lot riding on it. And again, it all goes back to we have a much more fluid market where we don't know what's going to happen, and having the skills that we're describing here in this conversation is really to your benefit. So are you having real specific trainings about this transitional period with your team?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. Yeah, I'm rolling up my sleeves hard, man, and digging in with them. And like I've talked about, we've done the numbers, so now we have a good data set from the dialer, appointments set, appointments met, conversations, and so forth. So now I'm able to, because of the experience that I have, I can look at just a summary: how many dials, how many conversations, how many appointments set, EBPAs, how many offers written. And I can look at that from each agent and say, okay, you're stuck here. As an example, newer agent on the team, right? Doesn't have a big pipeline. We set a standard for, okay, we want you to do 100 dials a day. And again, some people might be out there like, 100 dials a day? Like, we're using a dialer. So, but I have done it on the phone before. You can actually do it, believe it or not. If you don't have anything going on, i.e. you don't have any showings and you're not hopefully uploading listings into your own MLS, hopefully you have a transaction coordinator, you can make 100 dials simply with your phone. So I know that sounds like a lot, but hey, maybe that is something you need to work on. But anyways, that aside, as a new agent, I'm like, the bar at 100 a day, man, if it's 60 hours a week, right? If a real estate agent, especially in the beginning of their career, and I'll offer you this, if you're in the first 5 years, you're in the beginning of your career. So just understand that you're in the beginning of your career. And even here's the other trick: even if you're past 3 to 5 to 6, 10 years and you want to make a certain amount of money, it still is probably 60 hours a week. Let's be honest. So anyways, this new agent, it's like, bro, that 100, that's too low. That's too low for you. Now you come into role play. I see your skills going up just from coming to role play. You're coming to the phone jams. You're coming to the Thursdays that I do the calls. So your skills are going up because you're osmotically around people that are giving you feedback, right? You're watching how they're doing it. You're learning. But also, you got to go and do the reps, right? So there's the training and then there's the reps. So I'm like, you need to get more repetition on the phone. Oh, I said this here. I kind of said that there. Like on Fridays now, like tomorrow, we actually listen to each other's calls. So they're recorded. So yeah, it's good to listen to your own calls, but now put your call in the room and we all listen to it. And it's like, whoa, now you get feedback from everybody else, right? So anyways, that agent's like, man, you need to be probably at 700, 800, 900,000 dials, maybe even more a week so that you can get your pipeline up so that because we don't even have any appointments kind of like he actually set a couple listing appointments, bully for him. We help him with that. Like, hey, how do you do the market analysis, inventory, so forth. And then you get into other agents where it's like, hey, you're having a lot of conversations. You've got EBBAs. You have shown properties, but there's a 0 for offers written. Okay, that's where you're stuck. So here's what's going on. You're showing a lot of property, but you're not asking the next level tough question into those buyers. At what price would this property make sense to you? You're going, oh, well, you don't like the area, and you're doing a lot of rapport, and you're building friends. But hey, guess what? Like you're here to make money. Like it's great to make friends. I'm not saying you put see people with a bag of money on their head. I'm saying that if you really are a real estate professional and you've chosen this, you're not a victim to that. They've got me running around. Now you're volunteering for that because you're not asking that tough question of what would this property make sense to you? And bro, it goes back to like my dad, and it probably should be, it was an entry level. Do you remember the question that you would say, like the I don't know, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but like the question that they said, this is the question you need to ask people
When you're first meeting with them, like a buyer or seller?
yeah, like back old school, like 1980 type, like just first question you kind of ask.
Are you ready to buy or sell today?
Yeah, kind of, but like you're working with a buyer. It's if I found you the property that
Ah,
fit all your criteria today, are you ready to write an offer? Like, you know what I mean? Like just so direct, right? But that old school stuff is I'm kind of saying the same thing here, right? Like, hey, at what price does this property make sense to you? Or even, hey, before you even go out with them, if we find you the property, dude, this is like base level stuff. And I think it's been so forgotten. And it's like, get me leads and funnels and AI and all this. And like the sales, the real core sales question that is tried and true, kind of we come back to that now, which by the way, even I mean, you didn't have to do it in the seller market that we're in because everybody was ready to write offers, but and now it gets lost. Like it gets lost in this antiquity of this wacky market and you lose the base level because now nobody knows how to really work with a buyer, right? So it's like, okay, but my point was here is that, there's individual places where you can get coached, right? That entry-level agent. Now, that entry-level agent, too, as I think to myself, it's like one of the things I'm going to say to him next is like, hey, if I found you the perfect property today that fit all your wants and needs, are you ready to write an offer? Well, motivation. If they go, well, then the motivation's low. Then guess what? Don't get in the car. Don't go show them properties because you're wasting your time. Get back on the phone, look for somebody that's ready, willing, and able. When you ask them that question, they say yes. Say, okay, great. What are the top 3 criteria? And then you get into that. Then it's just like, you've got to drive into the motivation. You've got to drive into saying, are you ready to write? And look, this is not pressure. This is not sales pressure, crappy bullshit techniques. This is what needs to happen to help you not be a victim of not learning skills that are not going to feed your family
And it
or
doesn't mean you
provide for
completely
your legacy.
abandon that person. It just means that you
No.
make note of what their objection was or what their lack of motivation was, so that you can either not continue to twist their arm, but certainly clarify what it is so that you are both clear as to what it is, make note of it. And when circumstances or timing changes, you can reach back out and say, you said X, X has arrived. Now, are we ready? You asked the question again. So not only are you refining your conversation skills, which is something you're alluding to, or not even alluding to, you're making very clear, sharpening those conversation skills, but you also properly and respectfully put it in its place for a follow-up. And the lead never dies, but you are communicating that you're paying attention and that there's another place for it and time for it. And that skill, although always very valuable, is one of those accompanying skills that is so valuable right now, so that you can go on to, okay, not you, next. But again, not in this dismissive, negative connotation, just the
Well, that's
efficiency.
the other thing. Exactly. Well, efficiency. And it's efficiency for the new agent of like, hey, it's just more dials, man, and being like going, okay, I know that you want to go home and do this or that, but it's like, man, if you chose this business, this is what it's going to take. It's 60 hours a week. So if you're not on appointments and you want to be efficient with, 2 to 3 months down the road, hopefully you start getting some closings on the book, right? You've got to be efficient with making dials right now. Now, what really prompted me, I'm sorry for kind of cutting you off a little bit there, but the higher level agents. So we got an agent on the team that's a top producer, right? Is got the most closings, got the most under agreement, and kind of being efficient with this. And I got to be careful here, but it's the truth. So he has some people in his database, and this was the coaching. I was with him till 7:30 last night, man. And this is like, hey, as a leader, you got to be ready to like be there and really. And this is something I've done it in good ways, but it's just like me getting more efficient, going, this is the place where my skill set really is going to matter the most. I think about Carlos German in this. He's like, lean into the places where your skill set, your superpower is going to be utilized at the highest, right? So I was like, okay, so let's just dig in here, man. Like, okay, here's your numbers. We talk a lot and all this. Going on a big listing appointment with him today because he's, wanted some of my support. But anyways, he's got somebody in there, and now it's kind of, we're going to use this person's name as a kind of like an inside thing between us. Like, you got to get rid of this person, not get rid of them. This is what I meant by it, not get rid of them. They are kind of low credit score, working on their credit, working with the lender. I'm like, okay, man, this is the kind of person where you want to give it to that new agent. Hey, now he's going to follow up with the lender. He's going to follow up with her. Like, he's got more time to work with somebody like that. Where I was like, bro, we got to keep you in Google Local Service, like the top lead sources, Google Local Service, your Sphere, HomeLight, Fast Expert. Like, that's where you got the most closings from last year. So why are you messing around with low credit score person? Don't throw them down the drain, to your point. Don't chuck them of, hey, like, nah, man, like, give that to a newer agent that's going to have more time to really spend with them. So that's where I see the team kind of working out. Like, so if you're that newer agent out there and you're, man, like, I would really say look to joining a team that has that can give you that kind of person. And by the way, they're not going to give you the top. I'm not going to give that new agent. I did this back in the COVID world because I didn't know what I was doing as much there, but giving these really top leads to a novice agent. Well, that wasn't being efficient on my part. So I wasn't a victim to them not closing them. I volunteered to give them a top tier lead, right? So I've got to always shine that light back on me of like, where am I? I don't want to be a victim to my own decisions, to the things that I'm avoiding and not getting clear on what my superpower is and how I can make this whole thing more efficient.
This has been an entire conversation about cleaning house, efficiency, dialing in what's going on, being aware of where you need to adjust, how to have conversations in this market, the fact that you need to have those conversations, those honest conversations in this market, letting go or putting aside what needs to be put aside. Man, these are just, I think these are great skills. I mean, I know we had an idea of how we wanted today's episode to go, but I really feel proud of it because it's really very tactical and specific. And I think it's absolutely the timing, like the timing needs to be just right with the buyers and sellers is just right for our fellow agents watching. So yeah, man, this was great.
It's relevant.
Absolutely relevant. That's what we're trying. That's exactly what we're doing. It's not
Yeah,
like
I'm just trying
it's
to
not
be
like we're
like,
scripting out 10 weeks of content because then I don't think it's that relevant.
no,
It's
it's like,
whatever's
what's going on right
right
now?
now in our head.
Yeah.
And you with the team more actively in it. I love the specific stories that live inside of that. And then I can then layer on top things that I've experienced in a similar fashion. And then by the time you know it, we've talked for 30, 40 minutes and hopefully we've derived some value. And if any of you have any questions about the things and strategies we've talked about, please leave it in the comments. Reach out to us. We're here to help you figure this out, especially if you're an agent that hasn't gone through these kinds of transitional periods inside the market, and maybe you don't have necessarily the leadership available to you or the leadership and the types of conversations that Alex and I have. Definitely reach out to us. Any parting words on that, Al?
Um, I will say so on the relevant and kind of documenting the journey. Us doing our podcast there with Jay, we are integrating that into our system. Our ops manager is going through some. This is all relevant, man. Like the unforeseen blow is going to land the hardest, guys. She had, her husband had a really a bad thing happen. He's okay. Had to go through some surgery, but she's just not able to like get to it right now. Like she's got to manage her family. So, I want to keep you guys on the edge of what we're doing with that because these are going to be targeted leads and going to lower costs. So this is relevant. It's like lower cost, higher quality, skill set up. These are all things that bleed in together. So just stay tuned. We're going to keep you abreast of what's going on with that because I'm excited about it. Not just because I'm lowering costs, and I think it's going to be a better opportunity for the agents, which is going to create more efficiency for them and more efficiency for the whole show.
And you've heard it here first. We're offering it to our viewers that want in on this to take advantage of this transitional time. I'm excited about us putting working together on this to put it together and bring it to everyone. So absolutely stay tuned for a more formal announcement on that. But in the meantime, thank you, my friend, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks, bud.